Hello, everybody. How are you? Happy Saturday. Slow in getting going this morning. I mentioned about all these crazy dreams I've been having, and yeah, last night was the same thing. Bolted out of bed, and actually, I think I yelled at my husband last night and blamed him for my dreams. Uh, you know how when you are in the midst of a nightmare or a dream, and you wake up, and if someone's there with you or in the room or what have you, you sort of the responsibility goes to them for whatever happened because you're not quite awake yet. So we had a bit of a chuckle about that this morning. But he's used to it. You know, we've been together 20, oh my gosh, I have to do the math. 24 years in September we would have been together. So he's used to these nighttime shenanigans. However, I can go long periods of time and not have anything like this. So I don't want to give you the impression that I'm constantly having dreams or nightmares or waking up or getting out of bed. That's just not the case. Once I accepted my mediumship ability and once I started working with it, excuse me, nighttime got a lot quieter. So I can go weeks and not have anything out of the ordinary. And this has been extraordinary in its duration. I can't remember the last time I've had night after night after night after night. So I'm hoping it is going to balance itself out when Mercury goes direct on the 18th. Because for me, I'm not always affected by Mercury in retrograde. It doesn't always have some kind of a profound effect on me. But I think this time it is. I think this is what's happening, and I'm having a lot of animal dreams and animals being in my bed and lucid dreaming, messages being written on the walls and light. And I used to have things like that years ago quite often, and as I said, it's subsided over the years because I do more work during the day, and I'm not trying to run from it anymore or ignore it or deny it, and so it has an outlet during the daytime. So I don't have to get visits from spirits or messages from other sources while I'm sleeping. And remember, that happens to us because we are more relaxed. We're in a different state of mind, if you will. Our brain is in a different state. And so spirit and messages that need to come through to you, or even just simple dream work where your brain is just trying to work through, or your subconscious is trying to work through something that's bothering you during the day, perhaps that you're ignoring, all of that comes out when we're sleeping. And so that's been going on, and so it's night after night. It's like a carnival ride up there right now. And so it's just interesting. So the mornings are a little slower to get started, and but then once I get started, I get everything going that I need to. But it's just been interesting. So a few things to talk about today, messaging wise. I did a video, I think back in March, where I spoke about the different stages that people were in and how important it was to check with your energy and how that might be working itself through your body. And I think I went through different stages. I spoke to people who got the vaccine and regretted it. I spoke to people who were fearful of getting it, but were going to anyway. I spoke to people who got it and felt good about it, and what that meant, and people who haven't gotten it and feel good about that. And sort of broke down the energetics of each decision and things that you need to maybe look at and change how you're speaking to yourself and even speaking to others, because everything has a consequence. And when we do anything that we feel is against our intuition or against a belief system, that will have a consequence if we do that. The people I'm less concerned about with at this point are people who feel strong in their decision, whatever decision it is, and they're not feeling like they have to talk about it, question it, look into it. They've made their decision, and that is where they are standing. It's the people who made a choice or didn't make a choice and are now regretting it, again, regretting that they did it, regretting that they didn't do it sooner, whichever scenario might fit you, or feeling forced that they had to do it and then they did it, or feeling like they actually kind of wanted to do it, but feeling like there was public pressure or pressure from their friends and family not to do it. So there's so many scenarios out there. It really isn't just black and white, as with anything in this human existence. It's all shades of gray and many other shades as well. And so just think about this. It's important to check in with what you're telling yourself now. After you've made a decision, especially when you can't take back, you have to work on changing your energy around it and what you're telling yourself. It isn't going to serve you to still play a blame or shame game with yourself over getting it when you didn't want to. We'll go to that scenario first. Getting it because your job forced you to, or what have you, you felt you had no choice. Remember, we always have a choice, and this is where people say, yes, but then I would lose my job, then I would lose my house, then I couldn't feed my kids. There's still always choices. Not easy ones. I think we can agree on that. Choices aren't easy, but they're still choice. And so that's one thing. And so if you've made the choice and now you regret it, or you felt pushed into it or forced into it, it's not going to serve you to keep telling yourself that I didn't want this, this was forced upon me, I'm upset. And anytime you have the opportunity, you're posting that on Facebook or telling your friends, I didn't want to get it, but I felt forced to and I had no choice. Really, that is not going to help you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically. That is going to have an effect on you, because what now you've signaled, first of all, you've signaled to your body that you've taken something in that you don't consider helpful to you, and in fact you might consider harmful to you. So that's not a good thing. Your cells respond to that, so you don't want to do that. The next thing is, if we look on a spiritual level, we live in a world of duality, we live in a world of lessons, and we live in a world of resonance and attraction. And so if you're putting out there, I did something that was forced upon me, I did something I didn't want to do, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to receive more lessons where you're being called to learn that lesson, which is to not do things that you feel like you're being forced into. So that means you're going to be given these opportunities where the universe is going to be saying, okay, here's another situation where you're going to be feeling like you're forced into doing something you don't want to do. So let's see how you handle it this time. And then another time, and then another time, and another time, until you actually stand up for yourself, if that is the lesson that you need to learn here, and say, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. Sometimes we have to do something that we might consider very challenging, painful even, in order for us to learn not to do it again. We're very simple in a lot of ways. It's like touching the stove when you were a kid. You did that once, you didn't do it again. So this is in part what this is for some of you. Now, for those of you who, let's say, what's another scenario? You actually are okay getting it, but you feel pressure not to because of your friends and family, because they don't want to get it, and they're always talking about calling people who get it certain names, etc. And so now you feel like you have to, in order to fit in, you have to not do it. That's the same idea as the first scenario. You are then going to be shown lessons or given lessons by the universe in which you're going to be pushed and pushed and pushed until you stand up for what you think is right, or be willing to go against the tide. In that scenario, you would be going against the tide, be able to stand in sovereignty, be able to stand up for yourself, be able to be alone and lonely, be able to take criticism and critique and still maintain your center. That is what will likely happen. What's another scenario? So again, I'm not overly concerned with the people who have made a choice one way or the other and they feel strongly about it. I would just caution again about bringing anger and shame into your discourse with other people, because that is where you will get caught up. I think those are the only two main scenarios. You did it and you didn't want to. You felt forced into it, and you continuing that story of I was forced, I was forced, I was forced. Why it's important to heal that now. Don't carry that any further. And somebody who wants to but feels the people around them are going to be angry with them if they do it. Same idea, same principle. There's an energy with all of our decisions and choices that we make. Consequences abound. None of us is getting out of this without some type of consequence. And the message I'm constantly receiving is it's how you navigate this time that is going to dictate lessons down the road or further lessons down the road. And, you know, because we live in this dual world, we always seem to have to, when we're trying to clean something up or expand our awareness of something, of a social structure or social condition, we swing way too far one way. It's almost like we have to get away from there, so we're going to go way over here. And then what ends up happening is then we slowly creep back down to somewhere in the middle, because most of us are somewhere in the middle. This is not a political statement at all. I don't care about politics. We are somewhere in the middle for most of us. And we're being pushed one way or the other in a lot of ways. Our conversations are revolving around that. And again, at some point, we will come back to the middle. We will. But to what cost? To what cost? There will be a cost. There is a cost and a consequence already unfolding, and it will continue to unfold. Now, you can limit the personal cost to you based on, again, how you're maneuvering through this. If you're not participating in shaming people or hating on people or calling people unethical, that was a very interesting one for Global News to put out the other day, that if you had somebody over to your Thanksgiving who isn't vaccinated, that would be unethical. That for me is a bit of a bridge too far, calling someone unethical when we don't know what their story is. So we don't want to participate in that. And remember, I'm here to help guide you through energetics, spirit, and the human condition and how it all works together. And so you can do whatever you want and say whatever you want, but this is my job to remind you that there are always consequences, and there'll be personal consequences first, and then there will be collective consequences. None of us are going to come through this completely unscathed, but the more you maintain your integrity, and that is by, again, not jumping into the fray, not shaming people, not calling people names, not hating on somebody, the less likely you're going to have some of the consequences that are going to come along. So clean up your energy around this, please. Very, very important right now. And we're not through this yet. So whatever we do, even if you feel like you messed up before, that's okay. You get to clean it up now, and start doing that today. I think that's all the messaging I had, was just that. It's how we maneuver through this, how we navigate this time that is very telling. And I want to just touch on intuition as well. I've been trying to promote intuition for years. I've been teaching about intuition. And one of the things you would have heard me say was practice using your intuition on the small things, so that when the big things come, you have enough confidence and trust in your intuition, and you know what your intuition sounds like or feels like, that you can navigate through the hard times too. And what has happened is, because we live in a world where probably 90% of the people don't engage in their intuition on a regular basis, or don't trust it, or don't really even think about it. We're now living in this world where it's very easy to not follow your intuition, whatever your intuition is telling you. Your intuition may be telling you something than what my intuition is telling me. And that's the other thing too. The other thing about intuition is that when it comes to something like this, if you haven't been practicing or using it for, a few years, this is not the time that you're going to feel confident enough to break it out and say, oh, my intuition told me. And likely you probably will be led astray by your ego and even instinct, because we are surrounded by this fear bubble now. And intuition doesn't work when we are afraid or under heightened emotion. So if you are fearful and you think you're making decisions from your intuition, you likely aren't. And it's important to understand that. It's important to accept it and be aware of it. And it's not about beating yourself up, saying, you know what, I am not in the right frame of mind right now. I am not centered enough to use my intuition, so I'm going to come back to that later. Now, of course, there are times when situations are emergent and you don't have the later. But for most of us, we're not living in an emergency. We actually have the day or a couple of days to really tune in and see how we're feeling about something. But that takes practice, it takes intention, and it takes hyper awareness of yourself, so that when your ego tries to come in or your instincts are trying to come in, or fears trying to drive your bus, you can go, I see you, I feel you, but I'm actually going to move here with my intuition. It takes practice, so don't beat yourself up if your intuition doesn't feel like it's working right now, because likely it's being bombarded with everything else. And as well, if you haven't been using your intuition for most of your life or even the last few years, it's likely not going to be working for you great right now, unless you can bring yourself to that space. And I'm seeing that a lot, and I've been talking a lot about 10%. You know, I can't give you proof of numbers when it comes to something like that. It's something that I see, something I read, something I've been told in messaging as well. So it's always a minority of people who move consciousness, who move the human collective, and who are employing their intuition, heightened abilities, mediumship, etc. at any given time. Now, I do believe that the world is changing, so we're seeing that more and more. We're seeing children being born with heightened abilities right from the jump, and so this will change. It's sort of this mid-ground. We have like sort of the old guard who, and I'm not talking about age here either. I'm just talking about a way of thinking and being. And then there's sort of the rest of us, you know, the 10%ers in the middle here who really do employ their intuition, who speak to spirits all the time, who have, this is just part of our lives. And then you have the younger people coming, and before you know it, the younger people and those of us in the middle, we're going to actually outperform this anybody. It could be a 20-year-old or it could be an 80-year-old. Anybody who is really sticking to the old way of life and just has no interest in any of this. So this will come to an end. And what is going to be the fallout? I guess that's the message. How did you navigate this? Because this is a test. It's like any time you've gone through something painful, gone through a divorce, gone through the loss of somebody, you know, grief. It's, of course, there are always heightened emotions, and we forgive each other for sort of feeling out of control and being out of control. But there comes a point where there's a bridge too far. And so have you crossed that bridge? Have you gone too far? This is something now to look back on now. Don't wait till this is over and then go, whoa, that was such a crazy time. I hope everybody can forgive me for all the things I said and did. Because guess what? I don't know. I believe in forgiveness, and we all know this now, that forgiveness is about you and not the other person. So it's important to forgive regardless. But I think there's going to be not so much forgetting going on. And that's important. It's important to be able to lay your head down at night and go, okay, I didn't intentionally hurt anybody today. I didn't shame anybody today. I cleared myself of my own shame around all of this for the things I've said and the things I've done. It's important to do that now. I feel like people are waiting till it's over, and then we're going to sort of sift through the rubble and then go, whoa, okay, I wouldn't be doing that, honestly. We are in such a profound and kinetic time when it comes to evolving that everything counts right now. Everything counts. And that's not to scare you. You know, there's no such thing as perfection. We all mess up, but it's important to be aware that you are messing up. And from what I see out there, judging by Facebook land and all of that, a lot of people aren't seeing it. They aren't seeing that they're messing up. And I'm not talking about taking the thing or not taking the thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how they are navigating through their decisions and choices. Very important right now, because this will end. A lot of this is going to come out in the wash. As with anything, we're never going to know the entire truth, but we're going to know some truths. And that, by the way, isn't going to change other people's minds. You know, people are always, well, how much more information do people need? People don't need any more information. Honestly, we have a plethora of information and it's not helping anybody. This is where you now need to pull back and go, okay, how am I navigating through this? Am I falling apart at every change in the mandates? Am I getting angrier and angrier with every day? Do I pop off on anybody that says anything that I don't agree with? Am I consuming all of this? Or am I trying to stay in the middle here? Now, some people might say pick a side. It isn't about picking a side, because I can tell you what is going on to some degree that a lot of people aren't seeing. And so you might think I'm on one side, but I'm here to help you navigate energetically. And so I'm not here to pick and choose who I'm going to help. But believe me, there's so much more going on underneath the surface and so much more to come from that. But we don't have to add to it. We don't have to add to it. So if you're firm in your decision, that's good. And the best thing is then to not participate in trying to control or manipulate or get someone else to believe what you believe. That's probably the easiest position to be in right now. And then for those of you, as I discussed at the beginning, you've got some energetic healing to do around all of this. Because if you continue to perpetuate the idea that you are powerless, that you have no control, again, the universe is going to hand you more opportunity to learn that you are in control. And that's usually not fun stuff, because we don't tend to learn from the fun stuff. So I hope that helps you for today, and I'll see you soon. Take care.